Welcome to the Spirit, Mind and Soul podcast. Today I'm talking to manifestation mentor Leanne Rose. Leanne will be talking about her difficult upbringing and how she turned her pain into passion. I loved this conversation with Leanne and I hope you enjoy it too. Please like and subscribe and you'll be notified when new episodes come out. Hi Leanne, thank you so much for agreeing to come on today and share your story. So I know that one of the big things for you was turning your pain into passion. So you went through a difficult time, challenging time. You went through some struggles which you're going to tell me about. Would you mind just giving me a bit of what life was like in the lead up to the challenges and feelings that you had and you experienced? What was life like before?
Of course, yeah. Firstly, thanks for having
Oh,
me.
you're very welcome. Lovely to have you.
And so life before, I had a bit of a rough childhood, to be honest with you. So in the lead up to the really difficult time I had, it was mainly just navigating a lot of stuff from childhood that was kind of unprocessed, if you like, and I was coming out of school, got into university, decided I was going to be a nurse, and was basically just getting my head down and trying to make something of myself. And then got into spirituality and the healing side of things, and it was actually this that catalyst. It became a bit of a catalyst for me to really dive deep into a lot of the stuff that I needed to process from my childhood that I had been ignoring
Mm-hmm.
for a little while I was moving through, um, moving through school, moving through college, and all that kinds of stuff. And I would say what the catalyst for a lot of me, the struggles that I moved through was my mum was she was diagnosed with schizophrenia and depression. So that was something that we struggled with. That was the main reason why I was actually taken into care when I was younger. So there was a lot of that family stuff going on as well. And I actually lost my mum, and she was diagnosed with cancer when I was 19. Um, and it was that really became the catalyst for everything. Really, I was managing up until that point, and then when she passed away, it kind of obviously became a lot harder to deal with some of
Yeah,
that stuff.
yeah. So young to go through something like that. You obviously spoke about you went on to have feelings of suicidal. Was this just, transpiring from everything? Yeah, yeah.
I did, yeah. It was funny. The after the initial grief stuff kind of kicked in from losing my mum, um, I actually I actually managed quite well for a little bit after that. It was kind of the catalyst that catapulted me into, I'm gonna make sure that I make the most of life, because that's what she would have
Mm-hmm.
wanted. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it was actually losing her that made me really deep dive into spirituality. I vividly remember this actually. She was diagnosed with lung cancer and we lost her very quickly. But I remember going to the crystal shops, and I was just holding on to this hope that I would be able to connect with her when she did eventually pass. Um, and I actually remember I had this amethyst crystal, and I was meditating with it, and I heard just let go just happen in my head, and I ended up panicking and just was like, "Whoa, no!" And I bottled it at that point. But it was actually something that was actually the beginning of me opening up a whole new journey in my life. And it was when my mum passed away, and I began to remember, oh, actually, maybe I will be able to connect with her. It opened
Mm-hmm.
up a whole new level of magic for me. And so I was connecting with her quite regularly, just speaking out loud, thinking I was a bit crazy, but going, it's okay, you're grieving. You're allowed to be a little bit, a little bit woo woo, a little bit nuts. So I connected with her quite regularly, which brought me a lot of peace, and it actually ends up then connecting me with other spiritual people that were trying to move through grief as well. Um, but it wasn't until a couple of years later, once I'd managed to get out of the initial phases, that the depression and the suicidality began to really kick in. And there was a lot of that, even though I was moving through stuff and I felt like I was healing at some level. Um, I began to connect with an element of like magic, you know, really getting into spirituality on a whole new level. And the depression then kind of morphed that a little bit into, I'm not supposed to be on this planet. I just want to go home. And that was kind of how that then started to manifest for me. And that was a really quite a dark time in my life. And actually, um, that's when I really started to experience grief at a whole new level, even though I no longer felt like I was grieving for my mum as an individual. It became more like I was just grieving the fact that we had to go through all this pain as human beings on the planet, and a lot of stuff from childhood began to surface, and I remember feeling very bereft about being human, to be honest with you, and that was a really tricky time. I now have an understanding that I had to go through every single piece of that to get to where I am now, which is where the transmuting that pain into purpose really comes from. Um, and what I would love to, you know, talk more about to really help inspire people that might be in that space and
Yeah.
feeling like there's no hope. And actually, there's something about being in that place that it will catapult you into saying, I can't live like this anymore. I have to do something different. Um, and it really was that extreme discomfort that pushed me into the life I'm living now, which is, if you'd have told me a few years ago that this is what I would be doing, I would have been gobsmacked and told you to shush and be like, no, that's no.
Right.
uh,
I know. What do you think was the point, or the what was the first thing? Because I know you trained as a therapist and a yoga teacher. So was that
yeah.
as you were coming out of this, I guess the dark place that you were in with those thoughts? What came next?
So ironically, no. I was already knee deep into my life as a mental health
Right.
nurse at that point, and actually began to contribute to a lot of what I was feeling
Mm.
because um, you know, I was around a lot of people that were in a lot of emotional pain, and it became my world as just people in pain. And the system that we have at this moment in time does not serve people in the way that it really could do, mainly because
Yeah.
of resources, not because of, you know, will. There's so many incredible people
Mm-hmm.
in the mental health system that are doing their best, but they just haven't got the resources to do
Yeah.
what they need to do. And sadly, there is the spiritual element lacking in that as well. So I was around people every single day with these tools and techniques that I had trained in, and I was seeing people coming through that actually were just, they were missing this piece of faith and spirituality and a connection to their soul purpose. But I couldn't talk about any of that because it was very woo, and it was, you know,
Yeah.
it wasn't evidence based, so I couldn't I couldn't talk about that kinds of stuff. But actually that was the only thing that seemed to be really working for me. It's interesting. I trained as an interpersonal therapist, which is all about depression. It's all about helping people to move through the depression through connecting with your loved ones, which really does work. Like there's a lot of evidence base behind that. Um, but it was interesting that as I was moving through training in that modality, that my depression was almost kind of, it wasn't at its worst, but it had been worse before this time, but it definitely was amplified through being around other people that were really struggling with these things. Um, so that was difficult. It was difficult to balance. What I would say was the one of the main catalysts for me that really amplified the suicidal element of things was I had what my younger brother was accused of doing something absolutely awful, horrendous, and then became in a lot of danger because of these accusations. And he actually ended up in prison, and there was a lot of it then became that element of um, we would exchange letters with each other, and it became a way for him to start processing his own grief about our childhood and, you know, being separated. And you know, moving through foster care and losing our mum and all of that kind of stuff. So it was holding other people's pain that also began to really, you know, make things a lot worse for me. And the main thing was that I was constantly putting myself on the back burner all of the time, because I was so aware of how much pain a person could be in, because I was in it and because I was living it, that I was always trying to make sure that other people weren't feeling that pain. And so there was a lot of things in my life that I did so at the time I had a partner that was experiencing extreme anxiety and was going through suicidal thoughts himself. This was in the lead up to me becoming suicidal. And I just didn't feel like I ever had the space to look after myself. I never even thought about looking after myself because I was constantly trying to look after other people, which is something that I know a lot of people really, really struggle with. And the main turning point for me was when I decided that my happiness was my responsibility. And that was a big learning curve for me, because when you are in the throes of depression, there is this feeling of defeat, of just real lack of self-trust and real lack of self-love that is just running rampant within your system. And the difficult thing about this is that it's a choice to change that. And that was really hard for me to hear. Somebody kind of reflected that back to me, but it was done with so much love. Of you have to choose to do things different. You've got to fight for yourself, like. And it was that really changed things for me. And so I began to really, you know, think about all the things that I'm feeling in pain about. I'm feeling in pain about other people being in pain. I'm feeling in pain about the fact that I can't serve people in the way that I want to serve people. I can't, you know, I'm interested in all of these gorgeous things, all of these gorgeous ways of doing things, but it's just not marrying up in my life. So what can I do about that? And it really was when I started to get into that real kind of action phase of, okay, let's turn this pain into something, let's do something with it. If I'm feeling not okay, how do I feel better in this moment? And I remember there was this one time when it was this rush of anxiety I was feeling. And I just remember stopping and saying to myself, just be in this present moment. You're constantly thinking about this stuff in the future, or you're ruminating on the things in the past. What can you do right now to feel better? And so I think I did something really simple, like put some incense, like I just addressed my 5 senses to keep me in the present moment. Like I just lit some incense, you know, doing things that I would do with patients to make sure that they were feeling good. I was embodying that and making sure that I was doing it. And it was those moment to moment steps that just got a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. I got a little bit braver, every single time that I was, you know, I made myself the priority. And I started to put boundaries in place with people that were being quite, were taking advantage of the fact that I put people first. And you know, you can still do that in a very loving way, and you can still let people know, I can only give you the best of me when I'm at my best. So I need to be at my best in order to help you. And it was a huge learning curve. There was also the element of me fully taking ownership of who I really am and not being afraid to display that, which ultimately resulted in me awakening some incredible spiritual gifts that I had always been so fascinated by and intrigued by, but never thought was possible. And actually, when I started to just take those moment to moment steps of committing to myself and doing what I wanted to do, just this whole new level of magic began to just open up in my life. And I can honestly say that a few years ago, I would have believed that I would struggle with depression for the rest of my life. There was a belief within me that was saying, you know, your mum struggled with this, your family struggle with this is ingrained within your DNA, it's who you are, it's who you're always going to be. And I can honestly say I no longer believe that. And I know that you can choose, and that's quite I know that's kind of quite controversial to say, but I'm living, breathing proof that you can,
Mm-hmm.
and
No,
there's been
right.
lots of horrendous things that kind of have come up for me to move into that level of, oh no, well, I'm always going to be this way because all these awful things happen to me. But when we choose to think in that way, we are automatically deciding that we are going to be powerless for the rest of
Mm-hmm.
our life.
Yeah.
And I just can't do that anymore.
Yeah. I talk often on social media and to anyone that'll listen that if you can just take control of your thoughts, and you, like you said, that's quite controversial because people, I mean, you've got to be very careful of what you're consuming because that will essentially have an effect on your thoughts, but you are in ultimate control. And I know people have debated me on that before and came at me, and I get it because I mean, you then need to take responsibility for that, which is also hard. If your life doesn't look
Absolutely.
the way that you want it to look, it's down to your thoughts and your actions, and you're manifesting every day, all day, every day. And yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I know that that's essentially what you help your clients with as well as, advanced manifestation mentor is what you do. Do you is this about the time when you started to understand manifestation? How did that come into your life? How did you start realizing that you were manifesting?
So it's actually quite funny. It again, my pain was something that kind of pulled me into my purpose. Yeah, it was. I actually this is quite personal. I don't mind sharing it. It's quite fun actually. It's quite funny. I had this thing as a young woman. We are constantly, uh, you know, told that we should look a certain way and that we should have a certain shaped body. And I had this thing about feeling as if I had small boobs. I was obsessed with it when I was younger. It was one of the key. I know it sounds so superficial,
No.
but it's much about. I'm a big advocate of helping women to love their bodies as they are, um, because of how much damage it has done to me and so many other gorgeous women that I've seen. This just dismantle their self-esteem. So I'm a huge advocate for that now. Um, but at the time, I just wanted to change my body. I hated it. I hated it. I hated everything. But that was the big thing. I had this big thing about not feeling like a woman because I didn't have these giant knockers. And it actually got me interested in, that's how I ended up stumbling onto the law of attraction, because I was like, oh, okay, maybe I could change, the way that I look. So it was for quite a, superficial reason. Again, it's not very superficial. It was based very much on me not loving myself as I was. Um, but that's how I stumbled into the world of spirituality as a whole, was through the pain that I was feeling. It made me go looking for the answers. Um, but I never really believed in manifestation, I'll be honest with you. Even when I was, reading the Abraham Hicks books and all of that kinds of stuff, I just never believed that it was possible. There was always this massive part of me that was just like, there's no way this could possibly be true. Um, and I did a lot of research, and that still was my belief for a long, long time. I was in, um, and of course, because we are always creating our own reality, and our thoughts and beliefs are what are creating our reality, I just kept coming up against that belief again and again and again. And actually, what I now realize is that was my system trying to show me, this is what you believe, this is what needs to change, you need to change this belief. But I didn't know that at the time. I now do, and that's exactly what I teach my clients to master. Um, but I didn't fully start realizing just how powerful we are until about a year ago, when I began to trance channel. So this is, it's very crazy, it's very woo. It's basically about, introducing an energy life force into your body that is not your consciousness. It is, belongs to the cosmos. It's I won't go into the whole depths of it.
It's right up
But
my street, so you can talk about it as much as you
so So, I mean, many people have heard of channeling, channeling energy. Um, and some people, they'll receive messages. We are all connected to this life force. I call it source. I call it source
Mm-hmm. Me
energy.
too. Me too.
And oh, good, I love it. And the source frequency I'm connected with, they call themselves the Galila Collective. And so that's how they kind of started to move through me. Even when I began to trans channel, I still didn't get the full picture of everything. I'm sure I don't get the full picture now, but I've got a lot more of it than I have before. Um, so I began to activate this incredible gift where, just this wisdom is just able to be shared. I literally become a mouthpiece for these incredible high frequencies that are here to show us that we are literally the creators of our own reality, and that once we choose to take full control, we have full control, and not in a negative fear-based way, but from this utterly joyful, gorgeous, exquisite place of basically being human is yourself as source energy, just completely at play. You are just playing with the illusion of being separate from yourself as this incredible creative power. And honestly, my world has completely shifted. And everything shifted in like the space of like 6 months. I was able to tap into this incredible gift. And my my social media kind of at the time just completely blew up when I opened up that gift. Suddenly I had these gorgeous souls that were wanting to kind of come into our world and learn about this stuff, and I suddenly realized that I was kind of bringing in this whole new paradigm of manifestation for people, and I know that I'm only at the beginning of this journey, and it's just unreal the level of magic that I now get to help people step into every single day. So everything I'd ever wanted, I'm helping people at that level now, that I, in fact, way beyond what I ever thought possible. But it all started with believe in myself today and do what I can today to make my life better today. And that's all I did, just day after day after day after day. And that momentum just builds and builds and builds until you're just at this level where you're like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
there is so much magic here, so much magic. And the gorgeous thing about this is that, we started talking about this with me losing my mum, and she's a part of me. Like I don't feel that grief anymore. Even, when people speak about her, and you would expect that grief to be long lasting for the rest of your life. And of course I still miss her human, a human
Yeah.
form, if you like. I still miss her
Mm-hmm.
quirky bits, and um but I feel her with me all of the time. I know that she's, and not in a way that's unhealthy. It's in a way that's just, life is so much more vibrant now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've always had this sense that, I've always said there's a lot of people that engage with spirituality and that are always trying to get out of the human body and trying to do all these crazy things and trying to get away from the human experience. But I've always had this deep inner knowing that life is supposed to be about ups and downs, because that's what gives us, you wouldn't enjoy the ups if you didn't have the downs. And actually what I teach now is, it's very much that, but on a whole other level. And it's not about life having to be ups and downs, but about you learning to love the ups and downs and
Yeah.
coming at it from a completely new different perspective.
Yeah, I agree. And I think especially in the past year for me, I did my NLP training a year ago now, and neuro linguistic programming, there's something called timeline therapy, which I'm not sure if you've heard of, but it's about getting to the root
I've not.
of, so it's about emotions like anger, sadness, fear, which are driving, they really drive you in your decision making in life, and it's about getting to the root of
Yeah,
them, because it's almost like what you just said. There's actually no such thing as a bad emotion. It's just about feeling. Some of them are great, some of them are less desirable, but they're all there for a reason. They all serve a purpose. And it's through
absolutely.
timeline therapy really that I came to understand that, because before that, like many people, I just thought, oh, this emotion's shit. Don't like this. I feel angry. I feel sad. But once it's your body speaking to you, and if you can just sit with
Absolutely.
that, I take it, do you do a lot of meditating and things like that as well to connect
Do
with
you
your
know,
body and feel?
ironically, I used to do a lot of meditation to connect, but now it's almost like there will be times when life just becomes kind of like an extended meditation. That's almost what it's like now.
Mhm.
And it's actually more joyful for me to move my body and to be like
Yeah.
enlivened and really enjoying that element of meditation, like that presence that comes with the meditation, but
Hmm.
being human and moving through my day with that level of awareness. And
Yeah.
that's actually what brings the magic. But meditation's a really great way to start. I was rubbish at
Yeah.
meditation at first. I kept falling asleep.
Mhm. What I've come to realize now with I used to think I had to do it every single day, and now I do some form of it every single day, focusing on breath, but it doesn't need to be sitting still with the music on, and because that you're not always in that mood for that, it's just you don't need it
Exactly.
that day, so your mind will wander off
Exactly.
because you don't need it. So yeah, like you say, I guess you can be present throughout the day in other ways. It doesn't always need to be sitting on the floor with music on and focusing on your breath. But yeah, so
100%. And I've often found that people that engage in these spiritual practices and they're doing it because they think, I want to feel better and I want to do this. They come at it with the angle of they're bringing all the angst and all of the not negative emotion, because I don't want to label it in terms of, but they
yeah,
they bring like this expectation around this process, and they put a
hmm,
lot of pressure on the process itself, and so they don't actually get to enjoy the joy that comes
hmm,
with. And I know it sounds really daft to say you can choose to be in joy at any given moment,
yeah.
but you
Hmm.
really can.
I agree, and I've also, I mean, there's even recently, I've had times, days in a row where I've just felt pretty crap, and I know all this. I know that it's up to me to change that, but sometimes I feel so. I'd be interested to hear what you think about this because sometimes I think I just need to go through. Obviously, I'm going through something here, and I just need to go through the motions because no matter how hard I try, I can't get from feeling crappy to joy right now. I just need to go through the motions, and
Yeah,
then maybe in 3 days I want to take that little step to a different emotion. But right now, I just need to go through this, whatever this is. Do you feel that?
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a very specific perspective on this, and because of the work that I do. So to go full woo on you, um, I have I now see life as us as source energy, basically just playing at being human and
Mm-hmm.
playing at being separate from itself in order to move back to the joy to itself of
Mm-hmm.
itself. So we actually come here, we actually experience being human to feel the grief, to feel the anger, to feel
Mm-hmm.
all of those things that we label as negative. We actually come here to
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the exquisite experience of that. And it's so funny. I remember, and this memory was playing on my mind last night, and then I had a discovery call with a client this morning, and she actually told me she's experienced something similar. So it's so funny that I'm now talking about this, because
Yeah.
I've not thought about this for ages, but clearly it's
Mm-hmm.
designed to be
Mm-hmm.
shared.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember being when I'd first lost my mum. I remember being in this exquisite amount of pain. It was awful. Like it literally felt like I was being punched in the stomach. Like I finally understood what gut wrenching like pain meant. I was thinking, oh my God, I have never experienced anything like this before. And I remember that's just full sobbing, like, and I couldn't get my breath. It was like somebody had winded me. And I was so deep in this process, and I was just like, what is happening? Like I've never experienced so much pain before. And there was just this moment of like stillness that just started to like spread through me, because obviously I couldn't get the breath in. And then all of a sudden it just started to like turn to like laughter. And it was the bizarrest thing. I literally, there was a bit in the back of my head going, you look mental right now, you're absolutely nuts. But I was laughing, and it was just this sudden like joy. First it was like peace, and then it was just this joy. And I didn't really understand the power of that at the time. But now I suddenly realize that, like, when we fully give ourselves to experiencing an emotion, like really fully feel it, it it transmutes into magic, because that's source energy seeing the contrast and then moving back into itself as source. So if that's too woo for people, then I get it, but that's
I think,
truly what I understand it as now.
yeah, I think anyone can take something from that. And I love what you said a moment ago about we're just here to experience these emotions. And I always say, and I posted actually on social media recently about how it's, if we look at the world as a playground and not to let other people have all the fun, we can join in. The what we're here to have fun
Exactly.
and experience and live and feel. And going back to the thoughts as well. If we can change our thoughts and be careful what we're consuming, what we're feeding our mind, you can create whatever you want, I feel, and that goes back to manifestation as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even, and this is one thing I've really found with this. A lot of people think that what I do is very kind of woo woo and very up in the air, and actually
Mm-hmm.
it's extremely practical. It's basic level stuff of, it's
Mm-hmm.
intense mindset work. I mean, you live your life through your mind. You are everything you experience is shaped by your mindset. Every single thing that you experience. And if you choose to have that experience mean something to you and have it mean something that is going to propel you forward, then
Mm-hmm.
every single experience becomes a gift, even if there is a negative tinge to it. So, you will often find that people who are incredibly successful have been through some incredibly traumatizing things, because the trauma has pushed them into making the most of life.
Mm-hmm. So your work is going really well now, obviously, because you're doing your passion. You attract, don't you, when you're following your passion. So what does the future hold for you
Absolutely.
then? Where do you see it?
Woo! Um, to be honest with you, I I love what I do, and I I have a very empowering message to share with the world, and I want to share it as far and wide as possible. Um, when I first started doing what I was doing, a lot of people kept saying, "You're the new Abraham Hicks," and I was like, "Oh gosh, that would be amazing, wouldn't it?" So, but the world's our oyster. I honestly do believe I'm at the beginning of something incredible, because I'm serving the highest
Mm-hmm.
purpose of just being. We talk about the fact that we all come here within we are all individual pieces of source energy. There is something incredibly unique that you bring to this party, and when you access that, you literally become magnetic. You become the best version of yourself, and you inspire others to become the best version of themselves. So people will flock because they want to be the best versions of themselves too. And if you can lead by example, then, but doing it for yourself first and foremost, I think that's the important bit, is do it, do what you love because you love it, not for not for any fear-based reasons of, I want to be this or I want to be that. Because that really was the driver for me. I just wanted to help people in a way that didn't deplete my energy and actually supported me as a person, so that I could keep giving
Mm-hmm.
the best of me and in a way that lights me up. And whenever I followed that, you know, that as a guidance, then I've always been supported 100%, and then some.
So aside from work, then, is there anything you're longing for?
That's an interesting question. I really want to see where we can go with this, with what is possible, as really learning to become creators of our reality. That's what I really want to dive into now. And I've blasted through the money barriers. I've blasted through, the work barriers. I'm now got my own fully fledged business, doing incredibly well. I'm living life on my timeline. Um, Even my relationship is just becoming the most exquisite, gorgeous, incredible, divine
Mm-hmm.
relationship. And it's that moment to moment building that for myself. So for me, I really just want to see what else is possible for me to build, and how else I can inspire others to show them what's possible for them.
Amazing. And you will. You know you will. And So you might have already touched on this then, but do you feel there's an empowering or inspiring moment in your life that was really significant that you just want to share again to give others hope? I think
Probably
you
got loads, but
have already shared a lot of empowering and inspiring. I just wonder if there's anything significant that you feel that was a magic moment.
I would say, I would say yes. So though it wasn't a specific moment, it was more a series of ongoing developments in my relationship. Um, I had always been I'd always felt like I had to put myself on the back burner and that my needs weren't enough or that my needs were too much. I am quite, I'm quite a, I'm not very good at loving myself in the way I want to be loved. And that was a key journey for me once I really started to awaken to the fact that my desires to be loved in the way I wanted to be loved, which was to be very exclusive. Like I'm a 100% sacred monogamy girl. Like that is who I am through and through. And to the utmost level, because that is the level I will give you. Once I started to realize that those desires within me actually call my partner into his power and into his love frequency and actually serve him. It's not about controlling him, it's inviting him to even deeper levels of intimacy that he's never known before. When I started to recognize that my wants and needs, I wasn't being a crank, I wasn't being controlling. I was just asking to be loved in the way that I wanted to be loved. And when I was confident enough and loved myself enough to just say, this is what I need from you, there was just true magic that opened up for me. And I'd spent years telling myself that I can't have what I want because my desires aren't worthy. So that's one thing I'd really want to share with people. If you're coming from a place of just wanting to be loved in a way that serves everybody, then follow through with that and don't be scared to ask for what you need. It won't just serve you, it will serve everyone around you.
I think that's the perfect place to end. Thank you so much, Leanne, for coming on and for sharing that. That was a tough story, but thank you so much for sharing it. I know it was really personal for you, but I think there was so much value in there that people can take, like I said, regardless of beliefs. So thank you so much, and I wish you all the best.
You too.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much. I hope you enjoyed listening to Leanne's story. I loved having that conversation with her. If you're interested in Leanne's work and want to get in touch with her, all details on how to do so are in the description below. If you did enjoy the video, please like it, and I'd love if you could subscribe and you'll be notified when the next podcast episode comes out.